A single leaf, small, unassuming, yet deadly, crept into the heart of a proud empire. It promised wealth to some, ruin to others. Families shattered, cities corroded, and in the shadows of booming trade, a war was quietly brewing, one that would bend the course of history and leave a nation questioning its very soul. This is the story of China and the opium that almost broke it. Before the first gunshot, before the treaties and the humbling of an empire, there was China, a land of wealth, of culture, of unmatched trade. Its cities hummed with life. From the bustling markets of Guangzhou to the serene waterways of Suzhou, silk flowed like rivers of gold. Tea carried the scent of tradition, and porcelain told stories that would travel the world. Foreign ships crowded the harbors, drawn by the allure of Chinese treasures. Merchants and diplomats came seeking profit, influence, control. Yet China was cautious, proud, and sovereign, its civilization centuries older than those who came knocking. But in the quiet corners of its ports, a silent threat was taking root. A single, seemingly harmless leaf, imported from distant lands, began to slip into homes and hearts. It promised relief, pleasure, wealth, yet carried a poison that would fracture families, drain the treasury, and challenge the very idea of authority. This was not a war that started with armies clashing. It started in the shadows of trade, in tea houses and alleys, with a creeping addiction no one could fully see. And soon, the calm that had defined China for centuries would shatter, leaving a nation to face a test that would echo across generations. Across the seas, in Britain, a problem brewed. The world coveted China's treasures, its tea, silk, and porcelain, but Britain had little the Chinese wanted in return. Silver flowed east, draining their coffers, and yet the demand only grew. Then came the slender leaf that would change everything: opium. Smuggled from India, it promised a solution to Britain's trade imbalance, a way to turn profit into power. But what seemed a clever business venture was far more sinister. Opium didn't just trade hands, it invaded minds, corrupted societies, and built invisible chains stronger than iron. By the time the first chests arrived in Guangzhou, whispers began in tea houses, in narrow alleys, in households that could no longer ignore it. Young men fell into debt. Families broke under the weight of addiction. The treasury leaked silver as fast as it could be counted. And yet, to many foreign merchants, this was simply business, a golden opportunity disguised as a problem for someone else to solve. China's leaders saw it differently. The leaf was not merely a substance. It was a dagger at the heart of their sovereignty. But the empire was cautious, bound by centuries of tradition, law, and a belief in moral order. The question loomed: how do you fight an enemy that enters quietly, without armies or cannons, yet wounds deeper than any battlefield? And so, the stage was set, not for a war that began with fire, but a war that began in shadows, in homes and markets, where the most dangerous invasion was measured not in soldiers, but in temptation. The leaf had arrived quietly, but its impact was deafening. It crept into homes, slipping past doors, into teapots and bowls, into the hands of sons, fathers, and merchants alike. What started as curiosity became obsession. Debts mounted, families fractured. Children watched as their fathers disappeared into smoke-filled rooms, their mothers helpless against the invisible grip of addiction. The economy began to tremble. Silver flowed out of China faster than it could be counted, feeding the foreign merchants' coffers. Markets that once thrived on honest trade now trembled under the weight of dependency and despair. The social fabric, carefully woven over centuries, began to fray. Yet, not everyone succumbed. In the courts of the Qing dynasty, scholars debated, officials reported, and a few brave souls demanded action. But bureaucracy moved slowly, and the invader moved faster. Opium was not an army. It had no cannons, no flags, but it conquered all the same. And so, China faced an enemy unlike any before, silent, insidious, invisible, yet devastating. The streets whispered of ruin, and the quiet invasion left a nation on the brink. Its pride challenged, its people suffering, and its leaders forced to confront a threat that could not be fought with swords alone. This was the first battle China could not see, a battle not of armies, but of will, of morality, and of survival. And in the distance, the first echoes of confrontation were beginning to stir. Amid the chaos, one man rose with a clarity that would echo through history. Lin Zexu, scholar and official, saw the poison not as a trade commodity, but as a dagger aimed at the heart of his people. While others debated, he acted. His mission was simple: protect the empire, uphold the law, and defend the dignity of a nation under siege. He began by confronting the foreign merchants directly, demanding they surrender their opium. And when words failed, he turned to action. 20,000 chests of opium, each a symbol of corruption, addiction, and foreign greed, were collected and set ablaze. The smoke rose into the sky like a warning. China would not yield quietly. But the world beyond the harbor did not see a moral stand. They saw lost profits, a challenge to their power, and a threat to the empire they sought to dominate. Lin Zexu's courage, though heroic, had lit a fuse. Britain, unwilling to accept defeat in trade or prestige, began preparing for confrontation. In the alleys, the people watched, some in awe, some in despair. Families still reeling from opium's grip caught glimpses of hope. China's fight was no longer just against a drug, it was against an entire system that sought to bend the nation to foreign will. This was the first spark of defiance, a moral battle that would soon ignite into war. Lin Zexu's stand was not just a fight for China's laws, it was a fight for its soul. Words had failed, morality had failed, and now the cold steel of gunboats would speak. Britain's response was swift, brutal, and unyielding. The first shots of the Opium War tore through the calm of China's ports, echoing across the waterways that had once carried silk, tea, and porcelain in peace. China's defenses, built over centuries, were formidable, but they were no match for the modern firepower of foreign ships. Cannons roared, walls trembled, and lives were lost in a storm that seemed impossible to stop. Yet even in defeat, the empire did not crumble entirely. Soldiers fought bravely, cities resisted, and officials strategized under the weight of an unprecedented assault. The war was not merely about territory, it was about control, about forcing China to bend to foreign demands, about demonstrating that trade and greed could override centuries of culture and sovereignty. Families still reeling from opium's grip now watched their nation struggle on a new battlefield. But even in the smoke and the chaos, a lesson emerged. Resilience is born in the crucible of hardship. China's leaders began to see the cost of inaction, the price of complacency, and the need to adapt, not just to foreign technology, but to a changing world that would not wait for tradition to catch up. This was the first true confrontation between a proud empire and the modern, industrial world. And though the war exposed vulnerability, it also revealed a spirit that would refuse to be extinguished. The battlefield had changed, but the fight for China's soul had only begun. The guns fell silent, but the cost had only just begun. The Treaty of Nanking was signed, and with it came a reality China could not ignore. Sovereignty had been compromised, pride wounded, and centuries of carefully guarded authority forced to bend under foreign will. Hong Kong, once a quiet outpost, was ceded. Ports were opened to foreign trade, tariffs dictated by outsiders, compensation demanded for opium lost, silver poured out of the empire, filling foreign coffers while emptying China's treasury. It was not just a treaty, it was a declaration that wealth and power could be extracted from a nation without consent. For the people, humiliation was everywhere. Families who had survived opium's grip now watched their nation's freedom slip away. Streets and markets felt the weight of foreign control, and whispers of unrest grew louder. The empire's moral authority had been tested, and while some officials counseled patience, others questioned whether tradition alone could protect a nation in this new, ruthless world. Yet even in the shadow of defeat, resilience glimmered. The lessons were bitter, but necessary. China began to understand that survival required adaptation, unity, and a willingness to confront both internal weakness and external threat. The nation's soul had been challenged, but it was not yet broken. This was the first great humiliation of modern China, a wound that would leave scars, yes, but also sow the seeds for the determination, reform, and eventual resurgence that history would one day witness. The guns had fallen silent, but the echoes of defeat lingered everywhere. Cities were restless, merchants desperate, and officials caught between a crumbling social order and foreign demands. The opium that had quietly invaded homes now fed the cracks in an empire, already weakened by humiliation. Internal divisions deepened. Corruption festered in local administrations. Peasants and workers, burdened by taxes and debt, murmured in anger. Scholars debated endlessly, some calling for reform, others clinging to tradition, unwilling to accept that the old ways could no longer protect a nation from a changing world. Families that had survived addiction struggled under new economic pressures. Communities fractured under the weight of scarcity and foreign intrusion. The moral and social fabric of China strained, and it became clear. The empire's vulnerability was no longer just a matter of external threats, it was growing from within. Yet even amid this chaos, sparks of resilience glimmered. Leaders and thinkers began to recognize that survival demanded adaptation. The empire's strength would no longer rest solely on centuries of tradition. It would require courage, innovation, and a unity of purpose to withstand both the foreign tide and internal collapse. This was a nation at a crossroads. Its soul tested, its people challenged, its leadership forced to confront a painful truth. The path to recovery would be long, and the cost of inaction could be even greater than the wounds of defeat. Even in the shadows of defeat, China refused to vanish. The humiliation of war and the fractures within society became a catalyst for reflection, innovation, and cautious reform. The empire began to see that survival required more than tradition. It demanded adaptation. Efforts emerged to strengthen the navy, modernize arsenals, and reform bureaucracies. Scholars and officials debated how to integrate new knowledge without losing the soul of their civilization. Trade continued, but now with a wary eye on foreign influence. Every challenge became a lesson, every setback a reason to grow stronger. The people, too, began to learn resilience. Families rebuilt after the opium crisis. Communities found ways to preserve culture while navigating the pressures of a new world order. Slowly, the cracks in society were met with ingenuity, perseverance, and determination. This was a lesson hard-earned. Power alone could be stolen, but the spirit of a nation, its ability to endure, adapt, and rise, could never be fully taken. China had been tested, and though the wounds remained, the seeds of resurgence were planted. In the quiet streets and bustling ports, one truth became clear. The empire's survival depended not on avoiding hardship, but on meeting it head-on. The story of resilience had begun, setting the stage for a nation that, centuries later, would rise not just to survive, but to thrive. Centuries have passed since the first leaf of opium slipped into China's ports, but its shadow lingers, not as a curse, but as a reminder. A proud empire had been tested by foreign greed, internal division, and moral crisis. Families were shattered, cities weakened, and sovereignty challenged. Yet through every defeat, every humiliation, and every quiet suffering, a spirit endured. China learned, adapted, and began to rebuild, not overnight, not without struggle, but with relentless determination. Lessons carved into the nation's memory became the foundation of resilience, a guide for future generations. The Opium Wars were not merely a historical event, they were a crucible. They forged a consciousness that would shape diplomacy, defense, trade, and identity for centuries to come. From the ashes of humiliation rose a nation that refused to bow, a nation that would one day command respect on the world stage. And here lies the truth that separates China from the rest of the world. It does not merely survive collapse, it uses it. Every invasion, every crisis, every internal fracture becomes a lesson, a blueprint for resurgence, a reason to rise stronger. The leaf that once brought ruin now whispers a story of endurance, transformation, and eventual triumph. This is the story of China, a nation tested by fire, shaped by hardship, and rising, time and again, toward the heights of history.